It's a Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Hot Grizz summer is almost here. Happy 4th of July. Tomorrow, Grizzlies basketball is back, kind of, as the Summer League gets started out in Salt Lake City. We're going to preview that run and even look ahead to Vegas, a little bit of an overview of the summer basketball games to come. This is Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Friday. You have got to get down on a Friday, whether it's a holiday or not, as the wise philosopher Rebecca Black once told us. Fun. Looking forward to the weekend. It is I, Joe Mullinax, your host for this episode. No DeMichael Cole, getting a well-deserved long weekend, coming out of a busy start of the week for him. Happy to close things out with you here. We're going to have some fun, you and I, on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It's what Rebecca Black and DeMichael Cole would both want us to do. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube. We're proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. That means that wherever you get podcasts, we are free and available. Make sure you are making DeMichael and myself part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. And I'm happy to be with you on this 4th of July. Happy 249th birthday to America. What an interesting Summer League awaiting the Memphis Grizzlies. It is going to be fascinating for a lot of different reasons. I'm excited over the next couple of weeks to unpack it with you here. I know DeMichael is as well. Remember, DeMichael will be actually going out to Vegas for the Vegas portion of Summer League. But the Grizzlies are, as they have the last several years, participating in a preview. Ahead of the Vegas session, they are heading out to, probably today, Salt Lake City, Utah, to get some work in before the Vegas games. The Grizzlies play tomorrow against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's fascinating. The first bit of basketball since Game 7 of the NBA Finals a couple of weeks ago is against the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, OKC will look very different in this game than they did in Game 7 of the Finals. I'm pretty sure SGA is not going to be participating in that game. Then on Monday, the Grizzlies take on the Utah Jazz. That'll be an interesting contest. Maybe Ace Bailey will show up for Utah. Maybe he won't. And then Tuesday, the Vegas games start to be the focus as the Grizzlies close out their Utah stretch against the Philadelphia 76ers. So Philly is a second game of a back-to-back. That means you'll probably see very different rosters going in both of those games. We're going to tackle, specific games like the Utah game we'll talk more about on the Monday episode. Obviously, the Oklahoma City Thunder preview gets a little bit of a back burner push because of the overview that we're doing here. But we'll recap that game on the Monday show as well. And I wanted to lead off this episode with the guy that I am most interested in, that after talking with DeMichael, talking with some other folks, fairly confident, even though as of this recording, the Grizzlies roster was not announced, fairly confident this dude will be participating and will have a large role. And his name is Cam Spencer. Okay. And Cam Spencer is somebody that going into his second year, his sophomore season, he is a guy who often gets kind of pushed to the side. He kind of gets forgotten, right? Zach Edey being the lottery pick, Jalen Wells being the steal of the 2024 NBA draft, both of those guys being all NBA first-team rookies. That leads to two-way contract Cam Spencer kind of picking up the rear a little bit. Cam Spencer has been converted from his two-way contract to a full-time roster spot, just as DeMichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, my co-host and partner here on Locked On Grizzlies, just as he and I have predicted all along. Cam Spencer is the Luke Kennard de facto replacement. However, Cam Spencer, if physically able, is going to be expected to do a lot more than Luke Kennard if he is going to get a chance in the Grizzlies rotation. The good news for Cam Spencer is he has that physical capacity. First and foremost, if you want to talk about a guy being a dog, Cam Spencer is a dog. He is going to compete. And whether it's Summer League in Salt Lake City or going up against the Phoenix Suns, now Houston Rockets, against Kevin Durant, getting in the face of KD. This dude has no fear. As Penta and WWE would say, cero miedo, if you know what I mean. This is a dude who is going to get after it each and every time he's on the court. And now he has the security of a full NBA contract, 2 years, fully guaranteed money. He knows that he is going to be a part of the Memphis process, at least in the short term. What he does with this opportunity is up to him, because so much of the end of that Grizzlies rotation is fluid. And while there are a lot of guards, there's not a ton of dudes that can handle the ball and initiate offense, right? You got Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr. After that, who's the fifth guy? You could pretty easily argue it's Cam Spencer. And Cam Spencer, to his credit, in a very small sample size, 95th in assist to usage rate, 100th percentile in turnover percentage. In fact, he had the best turnover percentage of any Grizzlies player that played at least 200 minutes last season. 4.8%. Now, again, very small sample size. That minute amount is almost certainly going to increase in the months to come. But Cam Spencer, aside from his tenacity, his willingness to be a solid defender, the three-point shooting that folks have talked a ton about, right? One of the main reasons Cam Spencer is here is he is expected to be an elite three-point shooter. Cam Spencer has skill sets that the Memphis Grizzlies sorely need. And putting him in a position to not be an end-of-rotation 10-minute-a-night guy, but to be a guy, perhaps the guy, depending on the health of Cedric Coward and others. For him to go out there and compete, except for back-to-backs, I got to imagine you'll see him against Utah or Philly, not both. But for him to go out there and really get after these teams is going to be fascinating to watch in an extended and expanded role. You saw it a little bit down with the Memphis Hustle, of course. Summer League is glorified G League, and you could argue it's almost worse than that because they're guys that aren't in the G League or haven't been in the G League, struggling and fighting, scratching and clawing to get that professional opportunity after college or professional ball overseas. Cam Spencer, if he comes out and dominates and is still able to be that elite facilitator, if he's able to be that creator of offense for himself and others and maintain a defensive tenacity, you got to remember, Tumas Isolo is coaching these summer Grizzlies. We'll talk more about that to close out the show today. Isolo is going to be in those huddles. He is going to be putting Cam Spencer in spots both he thinks will help him get into rhythm and also put him in positions where he's uncomfortable, trying to see how he adapts and responds with larger impacts and larger usage. So Cam Spencer's my guy to watch. A couple others that are kind of cheating. If Gigi Jackson does wind up playing, he told our DeMichael Cole he 100% wants to play. So I think the expectation that Cam or that Gigi, it's important to remember Gigi's age. Gigi remains one of the youngest members of the Memphis Grizzlies. He's younger than Cedric Coward, that just got drafted 2 drafts after him. Gigi Jackson, given his age, there is going to be a legitimate argument for Gigi playing. If he plays, we want to see Gigi have a bounce-back dominant summer, even though he plays a couple of games. And another name of somebody that wants to play, doesn't have to play, I would argue he has less reason to play than Gigi, is Jalen Wells, coming off of the wrist injury, all the stuff that happened to close out his rookie campaign. He tells DeMichael Cole that he wants to play. He wants to go out there, give it a go. If he does play, maybe it's a couple of games here and there, especially in Vegas, how he facilitates, how he interacts with these Tumas Isolo sets, how he takes on, because if Wells plays, he will be the guy, right? If Wells plays, he will be the dude that gets those opportunities to close games, to be the final shot, the decision maker in clutch time. Cam Spencer, I certainly want to see that. But if it's Jalen Wells, Wells is almost certainly going to be a starter for the Memphis Grizzlies on opening night. So I would definitely want to see him in that expanded kind of role. But again, it's Cam Spencer for me because I know he's for sure going to play. Gigi Jackson, Jalen Wells are 2 other guys. If they play, certainly worth keeping an eye on. Hit me up on X. Let me know in the comments at Joe Mullinax on X. Who are you most excited about this summer league among the returning Grizzlies players? When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we will talk about the newbies. What do we want to see from the likes of Small and Meshack? See, I said it right this time. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes concert tickets faster and easier than ever in purchasing them. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling, doom scrolling, trying to find the best deal, Gametime Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price that you pay with no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Gametime app. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So obviously the Grizzlies made some draft selections in the 2025 draft. Cedric Coward, Javon Small, and Jameer Meshack. Jameer Meshack. Those were the draft picks this year. Cedric Coward, if he plays, logically, is going to be a player to watch. But I said if he plays because, remember, he only logged 6 games of experience at Washington State this past season because of an injury to his shoulder. Now, he was pronounced TBD, to be determined, by Grizzlies GM Zach Kleiman about his availability for Summer League. I'd imagine you'll see him on the roster. You'll see him out in Salt Lake City and then Las Vegas. But how much he plays, TBD. If he plays, he's the red flashing beacon of the guy to watch, right? Because this is somebody in a real sense that has the physical capacity to dominate basketball games. This is somebody that really has the length, the skill set, the scoring ability that DeMichael and I talked about on yesterday's show. 72% on two-pointers across 2 years of Division I basketball. That's a pretty substantial sample size. That means that he's taking smart shots. He's making good decisions. We've talked about the length at 7'2.5" wingspan. This is a guy that everybody wants to watch play. But if he is truly what I say he can be, and he is the third best player on this team by the end of the 2025-2026 season, if that's true, I don't need to see him in Summer League. I need to see him 100% healthy. So, obviously, selfishly, I'd love to watch Cedric Coward go out there and hoop it up and be a dominant force in Salt Lake City and Las Vegas. And watch if he has that handle that we're worried about, or at least I'm worried about him possessing. Let him be an initiator of offense. Put him in spots where he has to make tough choices that maybe he hasn't been asked to make before. And again, allowing him to be in a rhythm offensively, that's significant too. Putting him against the best offensive weapon on the other end defensively, making him grow in that space. His numbers defensively were not good enough for somebody with his wingspan. So helping with that projection of growth by experience, as good of an experience as you can get in Summer League. I want to see that, but I also want him to be 100% healthy. So if Coward doesn't play a minute in Summer League, I'm okay with it. I'll be disappointed in terms of just selfishly wanting to watch him play. But I understand making sure he's 100% ready to rock come September and October over meaningless basketball in July. Javon Small, I'm really excited to watch play because this is a guy that I think has a lot of talent. I think that he can do a lot of similar things that Ja Morant can do, not necessarily in terms of athleticism, right? Obviously, as an athlete, this is somebody who is not in the same realm as Ja Morant. If he were comparable, he would have been picked higher than he was. But this is somebody who has a lot of talent for his size, especially as a playmaker, especially as a guy who can create shots for others, create his own shot, getting off the dribble. We don't have to worry about his handle. He can get to the basket on his own using that skill set. And again, we talk about the Grizzlies and Zach Kleiman seeking out dogs. Small is 100% a defensive dog. He's a pest. How often do we hear that throughout the NBA Finals? He's a pest. TJ McConnell is a pest. Multiple Oklahoma City Thunder defenders are pests. You want guys that are going to make life difficult for ball handlers on opposite teams. You want guys that are going to fight through screens, understand the positioning of guys that are trying to screen them. Small can do those things. We have lots of visual evidence of it from his time at West Virginia. So I am very excited to watch him be a creator of offense in this Isolo system. Because again, we got to remember, and we'll talk more about it here in a minute, Tuomas Isolo is the Grizzlies Summer League head coach. So what Javon Small does in this system, obviously it's not going to be everything because they have a few days of practice and then that's it, right? They get on the plane, they head to Salt Lake. But they have basic sets and basic principles that they are going to be told that they want to play in. And it's the guy that's going to be directly responsible for the playing time of Small and other rookies. So Small has to go and show. I mentioned earlier, who's going to be that ball handling guy. Small almost certainly fills that two-way contract void that Cam Spencer just opened up. If Small wants to be with the big league club as much as Cam Spencer was and log 200 so minutes of NBA basketball in 2025, 2026, he's going to have to translate so much of what he did in college to the pro game. And that starts in Summer League. And then Meshack, arguably the best defensive prospect in the draft, the best defensive basketball player in college this past season. Again, another dog. What's the biggest question with Meshack, though? Will his three-point shooting come along? Will his offensive game match his defensive aggression? That's a legitimate concern for the guy from old Rocky Top. Because Meshack can defend all he wants. He can be the threat on that end and be an aggressive point of attack defender, make life miserable, use his hands effectively, attack passing lanes, whatever you want your big defensive wing to do. Meshack almost certainly can do that from day one in the National Basketball Association. That's not the concern. The concern is in 2025, are you able to play somebody that has limited offensive range, that can't create offense for himself off the dribble, that when he takes a catch and shoot three, schematically, if you're letting the weakest shooter shoot shots, that's part of your scheme like it was for Taylor Jenkins. Guess who's taking that shot in Summer League for the Memphis Grizzlies? It's going to be Meshack. Can he knock those jumpers down? If he can't, there isn't a spot for him in the National Basketball Association in 2025. Unless he is the second coming of Tony Allen. And even then, his role is going to be limited. So he has to be able to display the capacity to be an offensive threat. He doesn't have to be Cedric Howard shooting 72% on two-point shots. He doesn't have to be Javon Small and go out there and create shots for himself and get to the rim off his own bounce. He doesn't have to do those things. What he has to do is go and maintain that defensive energy that he had in college, because that's what got him to the dance. That's what got him to that mystery relevant number 59 overall pick in this past draft. Memphis wanted this guy to get a good look at him and have his rights if they want to sign him to a two-way contract, because of the physical presence that he was defending on the perimeter and everywhere on that end of the court for the Tennessee Volunteers. He has to keep that while showing the capacity to not be a massive negative offensively. If the opposing team doesn't have to respect you in any which way beyond you getting an open lane to the rim, if they can limit you effectively without having to put a defender in a position to be out of position on a rotation, because they know they would rather you take a wide open shot than a Cedric Howard, a Jalen Wells, a G.G. Jackson, a Cam Spencer. They'd rather defend that guy than you. There's not many minutes for you in Summer League. And if there ain't many minutes for you in Summer League, you're probably not an NBA player. So that's my thoughts on the new guys. Obviously, if Cedric Howard plays, that's amazing. Meshack is hanging by a prayer. Really got to show some offensive range. Small is the one I'm most interested in among the young guys because he's going to be around. He's going to be a two-way guy. Can he mash and mesh the game that showed such strong flashes in college with the pros? I'm fairly confident Coward's going to be able to do that. Meshack, I think as a defender he can, but his offensive game I'm nervous about. Let me know on X at Joe Mullinax. Hit me up in the comments. What are you thinking of these young guys heading into Summer League? And how hell bent are you on wanting to see Cedric Coward play? Like I said, I'm not as resigned to that, even though I'm a big Cedric Coward fan. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to close out this episode of the show talking about the new head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, who is also the head coach of the summer Memphis Grizzlies, Tua Masisalo. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host for this episode, this 4th of July edition of the show here on a Friday. You know we got to get down on a Friday. We've been talking Summer League, and again, the opponents aren't as relevant here, right? Like they play the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll recap that game on the Monday show. And we'll preview their game with the host Utah Jazz out in Salt Lake City for Monday night. We'll talk about those components and concepts and the most important piece. We're not going to game plan for these guys. We're not going to break down the opposing rosters. We are talking about the Grizzlies themselves. And we've talked about a lot of names on this episode of the show. And there's going to be plenty more that we're going to talk about over the next week or two that we haven't even had a chance to discuss on this 30-minute episode. But the biggest name of all of them, in my opinion, is Tua Masisalo. And he's not even playing any basketball over the next couple of weeks. He used to play, but now he's the head basketball coach. And he is the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. And he's also coaching the Summer League team. Now, this makes a lot of sense and probably was in the plans for them. Maybe not all along, but I get the vibe that Isalo has wanted to do this. Because Isalo has a very clear vision for what he believes basketball playing should be. And I think he has made it very clear. And anybody that watches the game of basketball understands coaching philosophies and schemes. What we saw from the end of the season from the Memphis Grizzlies is not what Tua Masisalo wants to say is going to be Memphis Grizzlies basketball in this new era. That is fairly confident. What he did with Paris basketball, the focus on screening, the focus on an electric point guard that can get off of big set screens and find space and create for others. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited about Small. If you watch those Paris basketball teams under Isalo, so much of the dynamic of what his offense was built off of that starting point, the pick and roll at the top of the key or on the side. And that is going to be Small's priority. That's going to be Cam Spencer's priority. And those are two key components to what Isalo is going to want to do when you expand this thing out to opening night. And instead of Cam Spencer and Small, it is Ja Morant and Ty Jerome. That matters a lot. The beginnings of what those sets are going to look like. How different is the offense going to be? Will the pace still be there from what was seen with LaRoche and Taylor Jenkins before the firings? Will the Grizzlies slow things down a tad? How will they prioritize getting open shots? Will they be hell-bent on focusing on analytics and getting downhill, getting to the basket, touching the paint every offensive possession, looking for shooters on the perimeter? Or will there be a reintroduction of the mid-range? Guys like Cam Spencer probably need a mid-range game. We know Ty Jerome has one, and we've talked oftentimes about wanting Ja Morant to be in that mix as a layer to his game. But Ja Morant and Ty Jerome, aside from maybe being there to watch the games, especially in Las Vegas, those guys aren't playing. So it's not going to look exactly the same as it will 4 months from now. But the key here is how those sets get initiated. What is the priority in practice? We'll get more of a window to that when DeMichael actually goes out to Las Vegas in a week or so. And he gets to be around the team more consistently and watch them play and watch them compete and listen to the Grizzlies bench as Isalo is working with these guys. How does Isalo's offensive scheme start its journey, and how different does it look from what this team was under Taylor Jenkins, especially this past season? That's something to watch. Another thing to watch, and again, we've made light of it on the show and other episodes as well, but the dogs, the defensive mentality. For all the complaints about the Grizzlies offense over the years, even in Taylor Jenkins' last season, it's important to point out that while there were plenty of failures, the offense wasn't one of them. If the goal was to get the Grizzlies offense better during the regular season, it got better. It was the defense that fell off. It was the defense that struggled and led to Zach Kleiman saying that part of this pivoting is going to be finding dogs, finding defensive point of attack focused types of players. And they've done that to this point, with the exception of Ty Jerome. Again, Ty Jerome's not playing. Meshack is, Small is, Spencer is, maybe GG Jackson. And if you want to talk about a guy, if GG does indeed play, if you want to talk about somebody that needs to show a dog mentality in Summer League, GG Jackson needs to show a dog mentality in Summer League. GG Jackson has to go out there and use that 6'9" frame and compete. I don't need him to be perfect. I don't need him to even lock down in a Summer League game on a consistent basis. Would I like to see that because GG is going into his third year as a professional NBA player? Yeah, I'd like to see it, but I don't need it. I need to see an acknowledgement that the way that season went for GG was an anomaly, that wasn't what GG Jackson is, because GG has to be able to defend at a much higher rate. His offensive woes, I could care less about the shot not going in last year. I care about him statistically being one of the worst defensive players in the NBA. GG can't be a guy that's a small ball 4 or a small ball 5, depending on the matchup with Edey and Jaren out. He can't do that if he can't move his feet, if he can't understand rotations, if he can't communicate. I want to see that even on the most basic level of a half-empty gym in Salt Lake City, if GG Jackson plays. I want to see that. And I want to see how Isolo coaches it, how his staff coaches it, how they interact with these players, how they explain. Because again, it's going to be very basic. How do you get effort out of these guys? How do you coach that? How do you implement what your vision for what this is supposed to be is in this short time period? And how do you, especially defensively, showcase the changed mentality, schematic differences? I'll tell you what, if I see a lot less open three-point shooters, even if guys are closing out on somebody that shoots 28%, that'll be a major difference. And I would argue that's a positive difference compared to what Taylor Jenkins was doing. So again, Jaren Jackson Jr. is not walking through that door. Zach Edey's not walking through that door. John Morant, Ty Jerome, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Multiple key players going into this 2025-2026 season obviously are not going to be participating in the games themselves. But what does matter is how Isolo communicates, how Isolo in a short amount of time starts with the basics of what his vision is schematically on both ends of the floor and how it's implemented and how his players execute it. How those guys in clutch time, how those guys in starts of games, when a run is happening, when does Isolo call a timeout? There's nobody hovering over him now. There is no interim tag that he has to try to get removed. It has been taken off. What is he going to do now that it is fully his show? We don't get the full answer over the next couple of weeks, but we get to start what that might look like. And that's exciting more than anything else. Again, Cedric Howard may play, he may not play. GG Jackson may play, he may not play. I look forward to watching Cam Spencer and Javon Small. But I'm most excited about what this team looks like starting now, the Tuomas Isolo era, and we get our first taste of that this summer. Thank you so much for being with me on this edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you for making us your first listen today. Now that you've made us your first listen for your second, go find the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason over there. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything that you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being with me on this 4th of July edition of the show. Make sure that you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube. Make sure you're an everydayer and you come back on Monday. We will review what happened against the summer Oklahoma City Thunder. We will preview what we think will occur against the summer Utah Jazz. Lots of things to break down as the hot Grizz summer for 2025 gets underway this weekend. Enjoy your 4th of July. Thank you so much for being with me on this edition of the podcast. I am Joe Mullinax. Enjoy Grizzlies basketball. We'll catch you back here on Monday. Until then, see ya.